an assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump.
Trump was taken away by Secret Service at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania after a bullet hit his right ear. KOMO News is bringing you team coverage tonight. KOMO's Paul Rivera and Karina Vargas standing by for us. We also have senior reporter Chris Daniels here in studio with us.
After shots were fired, blood streamed down the former president's right ear and face as he was rushed off the stage by security. President Trump confirmed in a statement he was shot in the right ear.
We are told by his campaign he is doing fine. Right now, the shooter and one spectator we know are confirmed dead. 2 spectators are in critical condition. That is according to the U.S. Secret Service. Witnesses described a loud series of explosions and loud bangs. Secret Service agents immediately rushed and surrounded Trump as he ducked behind the podium. He was helped back up, and you could see the blood on his ear and face. He yelled to the crowd and pumped his fist when he stood up. He was quickly whisked away in his motorcade. In a post on social media, the former president thanked the security service and law enforcement and offered condolences for the spectator killed and others injured.
And again, here's a look at the video of former President Trump at that moment, at that rally in western Pennsylvania. Take a listen.
Take a look at what happened.
Again, former President Donald Trump is safe. Law enforcement has reportedly recovered an AR-style rifle. I want to show you the statement from the U.S. Secret Service. It reads in part, a suspected shooter fired multiple shots towards the stage from an elevated position outside of the rally venue. U.S. Secret Service personnel neutralized the shooter, who is now deceased. U.S. Secret Service quickly responded with protective measures, and the former president is safe and being evaluated. It goes on to say this: 1 spectator was killed, 2 spectators critically injured. The incident is currently under investigation, and the Secret Service has formally notified the Federal Bureau of Investigation. President Biden spoke to former President Trump tonight, and as we mentioned, Donald Trump posted tonight on social media. Here is that full quote. Quote, "I want to thank the United States Secret Service and all law enforcement for their rapid response on the shooting that took place in Butler, Pennsylvania. Most importantly, I want to extend my condolences to the family of the person at the rally who was killed, and also to the family of another person that was badly injured. It is incredible that such an act can take place in our country. Nothing is known at this time about the shooter, who is now dead. I was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. I knew immediately that something was wrong, in that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin. Much bleeding took place, so I realized then what was happening." He ended that statement by saying, quote, "God bless America."
President Biden also condemning today's act of violence. ABC News is confirming that President Biden and Trump have spoken, like we just told you. Earlier in a brief news conference, Biden said he hasn't spoke to former President Trump, that he was working to reach out, and clearly he did, according to President Biden. He's calling on everyone to condemn this act of violence, saying no matter the political affiliation, this is unacceptable.
There's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. The bottom line is that the Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. And everybody must condemn it.
Let's take a look at the historic photos captured just seconds after the former president was shot. He is seen here flinching as a bullet struck his right ear. He then went to the ground, rushed by Secret Service ahead of being whisked away in his motorcade. Again, these photos on your screen are captured immediately after the former president was shot. What is being investigated right now is a possible assassination. This continues to be a fluid situation, but there will certainly be consequences for the upcoming election cycle.
A horrifying situation, Michelle. Today's shooting will lead to a reassessment of political events and, of course, rallies. KOMO's Paul Rivera joins us live now with what we're expecting to see over the next few days. Paul?
Well, certainly, as you mentioned, security and the awareness of security, what needs to be done, that is going to increase. Tonight, I talked to Jim Fuda about security at these high-profile events, especially ones that deal with politicians. Fuda worked with the King County Sheriff's Office. He was in special operations, and he worked as a liaison with the Secret Service and security for other dignitaries who would visit. So what exactly happened here with the security protocols in place at the rally? Fuda said, without knowing all the details, it is early. Right now, it's hard to say. Was there a way to prevent this, or what should have been done in your eyes?
Well, there are they call them counter snipers up, looking at the crowd, looking at the surrounding areas. And from what I heard on the news is that the shooter had not been up on the roof for very long, just minutes. Should he have been spotted? I don't know. I'm not going to Monday night quarterback that, because I wasn't there, and the investigation is nowhere near as complete.
And moving forward, so what happens now with security at these high-profile events? Fuda said that is going to escalate. That includes security conversations and protocols at the Republican National Convention. That starts Monday. Fuda said the conversations are already happening even with our own law enforcement here in Washington state. What would law enforcement do here in a similar situation? That is the question they are asking themselves. The King County Sheriff's Office told us today that this is all under consideration and they will respond to our local events as necessary. WSP adds they are maintaining their focus and their readiness. Fuda said it is sad that it has all gotten to this point. He said this is a moment where people need to come together. We'll send it back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Paul. Please continue to keep us posted. We are getting dozens and dozens of reactions from political leaders here in Washington and all across the country. In a tweet, Vice President Kamala Harris says, quote, "Doug and I are relieved that he is not seriously injured. We are praying for him, his family, and all those who have been injured and impacted by this senseless shooting."
We are hearing from multiple members of Washington's congressional delegation tonight. Certainly a concerning situation. As has the head of state GOP and candidate for governor. KOMO senior reporter Chris Daniels has been talking with local political leaders about this. Joins us live in the studio with more. Chris?
Yeah, Preston, Washington State's Democratic Party Chair Chassie Conrad said in short that the party condemns political violence and that violence has no place in our democracy. The state's Republican Party Chair told me he was at a Milwaukee Brewers game preparing for the RNC when he received word about the shooting. And Washington gubernatorial candidate Dave Reichert was on his way to a fundraiser. I spoke with them both in the last hour.
So, really shock, and maybe not even shock, Chris. I think it's more like dread. I mean, some of us who are in the Republican Party, who are supporters of Trump, we've been dreading this because the rhetoric that's directed at the man is so vitriolic. You know, the people who dislike him, who oppose him, they really hate him, and their rhetoric is so angry and hateful and personal.
And I think where we need to be as Americans is just to understand, look, that we are a free country, and each and every one of us has that freedom to think and say the things that that we believe without having fear of being harmed in any way. And I think that what we need to do is get back to respecting each other's opinion, being able to understand that we have the right to express those opinions and respect each other.
Walsh told me some events scheduled tonight in Milwaukee were canceled, but everything is scheduled as usual for Sunday and the first night of the convention on Monday, all still happening as planned. Preston?
Chris, one of the questions already is the security at that rally in Pennsylvania this afternoon and how someone could access a roof so close to a political event and so close to where former President Trump was speaking. Did either of them say anything about that?
Yeah, I did pose the question to both of them, Preston. Walsh told me this was a Trump campaign event. That was a question for those organizers. But Reichert told me he has questions about how that was able to happen. I think a lot of people know he is a longtime law enforcement veteran, a former congressman, a former sheriff. He told me he, quote, always has his head on a swivel.
KOMO senior reporter Chris Daniels, thanks so much. Many witnesses said they heard popping sounds and many thought fireworks were going off, but quickly realized what was happening when former President Trump and others on stage behind him ducked for cover. CNN spoke with one man covered in blood who helped one of the bystanders who got shot.
All we know was shots were fired, and then I jumped over the barrier and put my hand on the guy's head that was profusely bleeding.
Who was it? Do you know?
I don't know.
This is not Trump, though. This is another person.
Yeah. So Trump's not here.
And it was, you said he got hit on his head?
Yeah.
Did you see, were you in the vicinity of where Trump was?
I was on the side. I was a special guest.
Elmore described the shooting as complete pandemonium, but noted that SWAT jumped in quickly to respond to rally-goers. We are getting some local reaction from voters right here in Washington. KOMO's Karina Vargas has been talking with people. Karina, what are people telling you right now?
No, Preston, it's all everyone is talking about. Many are still in just complete shock after hearing about the shooting at former President Trump's rally. Now, many are telling me that this kind of behavior is unacceptable and that violence should never be the answer. Now, many are also expressing that they are glad that the former president is expected to be okay. And many say that this is also just an eye-opener about just how divided the country is. Now, several still speaking out about gun violence and gun safety and how accessible guns are. Now take a listen at what one of them had to say.
You don't see these things happening these days anymore. You know, it's not like it's back in the 60s or 70s. It's, with all the security protocols going on these days, it's very surprising to see something like that happen.
Now, we also asked the question about whether this will affect how people are going to vote for in November. Many are saying that it's not going to change the way that they're voting, but their main concern is just the safety when they head out to the polls. For now, reporting in Edmonds, Karina Vargas, KOMO News.
Thank you, Karina. The suspect was shot dead by Secret Service, but only after getting off several shots from a rooftop 200 to 300 feet away. They say about 8 shots were fired. The Associated Press says an AR-style rifle was recovered at that scene. One rally-goer was killed and 2 were seriously hurt. 2 of those people are in critical condition as we speak. Our coverage of this assassination attempt on the former president continues here on KOMO TV throughout the evening, on KOMOnews.com, online as well. Keep it right here for updates and further developments tonight on KOMO News at 11.